Happy Friday to everybody out there, and looking forward to some high school football tonight as we head into the last week of the high school football season, which is crazy. I can't believe I'm saying that. It just seems like we started yesterday, and some good games on last night. We'll talk about some of those. Or always some good Thursday night games around the state. There was the game of the week with WOTM was St. Michael and UMS Wright. I got a chance to go down and cover that Monday with our on the road show, and I knew this game was probably going to be one of the better games to end the season out of region. Philip Rivers, in 4 years, has built a great football program at St. Michael. A lot of people don't even know who that is, Randy. So they're 4A team. They finished the season 9-1. We'll talk about that a little bit more, just a little bit. But we're going to go over power rankings as we head into the playoffs. I know we got to play the games tonight, but really the power rankings are set going into the playoffs now, and we'll go through all 7 classifications. But good to see you on a Friday. We'll be on Auburn Blitz here in a few hours. Got a great show planned for everybody on that one too. So we'll be talking about the Auburn Vanderbilt game, but we'll talk high school football here this morning.
Well, there's plenty to talk about. You get into Week 10, a few of these regions, you don't necessarily have all the answers on who finishes where, but for the most part here in the state, it's a good idea where everybody's going to end up, and we in Elliott City already kind of know where we're going. We're going to the southern part of the state. We just don't know exactly who we're playing, and reason being St. Paul's and Spanish Fort playing one another tonight, Brett, to determine the Class 6A region down there in the southern part of the state, which one finishes second, because we finished third in our region with a win over Chelsea. So there's a lot of question marks around that, and that's one that we'll be watching closely tonight.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one for sure. And obviously, as you said, a lot of interest and importance for us as Benjamin Russell fans, because we'll find out who we play next Friday. Let's start in 7A. I mean, Auburn really has kind of separated themselves from everybody else. And they've had some close football games, but they're a good football team. It's well put together. I remember talking to Coach Etheridge. It just seemed like yesterday, but I guess it was about 12 or 13 weeks ago now when we went down to East Alabama Media Days, and the kids he brought with him. He brought a couple offensive linemen, and he brought that talented running back he's got. I mean, I knew right there. I said, look, if this looks like a team that, and the way he talked, that they had a chance to get over the hump finally at Auburn, and he's got all the pieces. They're going to be a tough out. Here's the problem for them: they're going to have to go back through somebody in that region again, and it's hard to win twice against a team. And we've seen it happen before. Team win the regular season, get knocked out in the playoffs. So that region over there in East Alabama, Auburn finished first at 9-0. Phoenix City at 7-2. Opelika finished third. Randy, I'll let you talk about them here in just a second. They're definitely ahead of schedule. And Carver, Montgomery, and Enterprise finished 6-3. And if I am correct on this, I think Enterprise will go in as the 4th seed over Carver because they got the tiebreaker. So we'll see how that plays out. I think I'm right on that. So that means a good Carver team that was loaded with D1 talent going to be on the outside looking in.
Well, I'll start with Auburn and Opelika because they're in our neck of the woods. I saw Auburn play Benjamin Russell in the spring. I talked to you on the phone while I was there. Oh, man, their quarterback is just a gamer. I don't know that he's a big Division I prospect, but Jackson Kilgore, from a high school quarterback standpoint, he completed. I think every pass he completed against us in that spring game was a touchdown. He's 6 foot, 6'1", 180, 185 pounds, left-handed quarterback. Really can do a little bit of everything. Moves around well in the pocket, but we always know a Keith Etheridge coach team defensively is going to be really consistent on that side. We've seen it over the years. He coaches that well. But when you add in the offensive talent that Auburn's got, I think they got 4 first-team All-State guys on the offensive side. They got Jackson Kilgore. They got Omar Mabson back there at running back that a lot of teams want. You got Hugh Bodiford, who was just recently named to the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game at center. And then they got Peyton Plott. His numbers are through the roof. He just made the North-South All-Star game, got over 800 yards in receptions, is just as good on special teams returning kicks, Brett, a kid we've been talking about for several years. So 4 out of your 11 players coming off of one team that's that talented, and Keith Etheridge as the coach says a lot. But I don't think anybody really wants to play Opelika right now. I would not get caught up in that score this past Friday. Hughley went down early. Could he have come back? Probably. But Opelika had nothing to play for in that game. They had a big lead early. Both running backs went out, so they were down to their third running back, and, they played it safe. Did get a loss there at Carver. But I really believe that this Opelika team, and you look at the power rankings, they're 5th in Class 7A. So let me run down those top 10 power rankings as we head into the playoffs for Class 7A. It's Auburn 1, Hewitt-Trussville 2, Hoover 3, Thompson 4, Opelika 5. Kind of tied right there with Central Phoenix City in the power rankings. Carver, Montgomery 7, Austin 8. Tied there with Baker 8, who got the win last night, a very close football game against Viger. And then Vestavia Hills comes in at 10. That's the 7A power rankings by the FHS. That's Alabama High School Football Historical Society. We get a ton of our information from there, and I can't thank that crew that puts all of that together enough. But your thoughts on Auburn and Opelika? You've seen both of them this year, Brett.
Yeah, I mean, they're great. I mean, I did not expect Opelika to be sitting in the situation they're in. I feel sorry. I don't have the bracket in front of me. We're not going to go down playoff brackets this morning. But Opelika going to be traveling to somebody. Yeah, good luck with that. That's a bad draw.
No, Opelika they finished second in their region.
Did they finish second? Okay, that's right. Phoenix City. That's right.
Yeah,
so they will be.
That's the reason. That's the reason they had nothing to play for last week.
Right. I'm looking at the overall region standings right here, and the tiebreaker goes to Opelika. You're right. They're going to be at home, and Coach Moore at media days. That was the first time I'd ever personally met him, and I knew out of the gate that Opelika would be back pretty fast. You could just tell by the way he carried himself, and I went back and did a little research on him and everywhere he'd been, and man, his record is phenomenal. And again, you look at coaches. It's no coincidence that no matter where they go, they're successful. It's about a culture that they instill and expectations that they have, and a guy that I could genuinely tell cared about his kids. And that's just off the hoof of somebody I'd never met before. But you could tell, look, me and you can tell somebody's full of crap or not. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I knew Brian Moore wasn't full of crap, and I could tell he coming back home to Opelika. This was a place he wanted to be. He had immense success at Hartselle. So, man, they're way ahead of schedule, though. I mean, none of us said Opelika was going to finish second. We all said at best they were going to squeak in that 4th spot, but they've risen up in a region that has 5 or 6 really good football teams. I'm going to include Dothan in that conversation because Dothan's 4-5, and they lost to those region opponents there. So they have a good football team, but I mean, somebody's got to finish 5th. I mean, it's kind of like when you play in the SEC. I mean, everybody can't finish in the top 2, top 3. So, yeah, and we want to remind everybody these are power rankings. These are not the ASWA poll. Okay, this is the power rankings that incorporates strength of schedule, all this kind of stuff. There's all types of factors that go in. So you may go, well, that's not right, but this is not the top 10 according to the Alabama Sports Writers. This is the power rankings, and there's a lot that goes into that. All right, let's shift over to 6A. Saraland has held on to that spot pretty much all year, and right behind them is Parker, Clay Chalkville, Oxford, and Homewood. Right out of that top 5 is Spain Park. You and I saw them up close and personal. It's a very good football team, and if I saw correctly last night, This is the first time in school history I think Spain Park's been undefeated going into the playoffs. So
I'm not surprised about that. Coming out
yeah,
of the region that they've been in, and they've only beat Hoover twice. They
right.
did get a forfeit one other time, so really only 3 wins since the inception of the program against Hoover. So you play them every year. So there's only been a couple of times that they had a chance to go undefeated. Very good football team. Finish it out, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts on the rest.
Yeah, McAdory, Hartselle, and St. Paul's right there, and then Mountain Brook. I mean, we're not going to go all the way down. Obviously, Benjamin Russell. I told you they come in at 19th, which is pretty good. I mean, this is a decent football team, and they've gotten better. Everybody knows that you and I call the games on Friday for them, but major change a few weeks ago with the coaching staff deciding to play a majority of their starters for offense on defense too, and vice versa, flipping the script. So it's a different look Benjamin Russell team from just even 4 or 5 weeks ago. So going to look forward to seeing maybe that matchup between St. Paul's. Again, still have some business to take care of against Spanish Fort. But the top 10 overall, I mean, this is a top-heavy 6A ranking. And when you look at Saraland, Parker, Clay Chalkville, Oxford, I mean, those teams right there, I mean, Oxford knocks off Clay Chalkville to win that region, but Clay Chalkville comes in just a bit ahead of them in the power rankings. That's how close it is.
Homewood, really good football team. I haven't seen them yet this year, but I'll look down that list of that top 10 that you mentioned, and they're the one that kind of stands out to me as maybe someone I didn't expect to be there that is there. So we all of us in the state of Alabama understand how good Homewood's been, and when they get things going in a positive direction, they can be really good, and they've been good for the last 4 or 5 years. We played them a couple of times in a row in region play,
Right.
and really good football teams. Lost one there and won one at home. I mean, that's a good football program. But the ones that I've seen Spain Park. Spain Park's as good as those top 4. I'd be surprised if they didn't play with any of them. Saraland beat St. Paul's earlier in the year, 19-14. It tells you how close those two programs were. St. Paul's hasn't given up many points all year, so they could sneak in late in the playoffs by winning games, only giving up a couple of scores to the opposition. That's how they got the best middle linebacker / jack linebacker in the state. He's a junior committed to Auburn. So the fun part about next weekend, next Friday, if we head down to Mobile, you could have the number 1 player in the 2026 class, which is for Benjamin Russell, Cedarian Morgan, matched up with a big linebacker that also plays on the offensive side of the ball for St. Paul's too. So that's going to be a good matchup. But the one I've seen and the one that I would be surprised didn't make a deep run in the playoffs is Spain Park after dropping from 7A down to 6A. Brett, they're massive. I don't mean kind of massive on the offensive line. They're great 7A team, massive on the offensive line. That's a very good football team with a lot of skill guys. They got a quarterback that's committed to Clemson. Barber's as good as any wide receiver I've seen in the state this year. And it wasn't just against Benjamin Russell. It's every week, Brett. A lot of times he's out of football games early because Spain Park's winning, but he's always getting 150 to 200 yards. So he's doing it against everybody. 6A, watch out for Spain Park this year.
Yeah, let's be honest. They're a 7A team playing in 6A. They got the benefit of moving down, and we see this happen. We see this happen all the time when teams that have been in a higher classification get the fortune of being able to move down. I mean, their mindset, their mentality is where they've been, and so it's not a cut on them. But look. I don't care who you are or where you are. When you take a step back into a classification, it helps, especially if you're on the bottom end of a classification like they were, and then you pop down and be one of the top teams in the other classification. It's going to help. I mean, we've had it happen at Ben Russell. You know, we go from 6A to 5A, and we've done that a couple times. It's helped tremendously. So some good football teams, obviously, in 6A. We'll be watching that one closely. Because we have some personal interest there. Let's go to 5A. You're going to talk about a team that went up a classification and burst onto the scene is Montgomery Catholic. They've been on a run. They've got the longest regular season winning streak right now in the state. And that encompasses 3+ years now. And Viger with a narrow loss last night to 7A Baker. Baker, phenomenal football team. It finished runner-up to Mary Montgomery in their region. But Baker's really, really good. And Viger lost 10-9. Randy Viger did it again. They scored a touchdown, went for 2. They don't kick extra points, man. And I mean, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. They had that 6-3 lead forever, and then Baker was able to score and beat them 10-9. But anyway, Central Clay, I had a chance to catch up with Danny Horn a couple of days ago. That interview will actually air next week, and got to share about his, career and kind of talk about that. Also caught up with, Terry Curtis, who played last night. Able to get both of those guys in the same week, and they're number 1 and 2 all time and win. So pretty good week for me there. And then Moody comes in at 4, Gunnersville 5, and then Ramsey, Russellville, Williamson, Boaz, and Scottsboro. I guess start with Montgomery Catholic. I mean, this is not any type of shock for anybody, but coming up to 5A and doing what they've done, though, may be a little bit surprising.
Talent level, though, it's not. Those of us that have watched, like you and I over the years, you can just point out there the lines of scrimmage. They can match up with a higher classification. And a lot of times that's where the issue comes in, is when you move up a classification, the lines of scrimmage, you just don't have the Bows and Joes to – sometimes you'll have the skill guys and a quarterback, but you just don't have the guys up there that are going to win the big games. They do. Montgomery Catholic's very good. Viger, anytime you see them at the top of the rankings, you don't want to play them in the playoffs.
No.
When they get things rolling, they're as good as anybody in the state. But 2 teams I would point to that I'd be scared to play in the playoffs is, of course, anybody that Danny Horn coaches. If you're not ready for the physicality that he brings, he'll take it to you. But the thing about Central Clay this year is I think they've got some of the best skill guys I've ever seen them have. I think they've got the most talented quarterback I've seen in that Clay County area. He's exceptional. He's got arm talent. He can run the football. He plays with a little moxie about him. Chase Horn coaches up that offensive side to keep you off balance. They're really good. Central Clay's really good. Danny knows it. He told you that. And normally you don't get a lot of positive talk about any of his teams out of him, but this is 2 years in a row that they've gone undefeated in the regular season. But Moody, you've talked to Jake Gaines also this year and met with him and Moody, and their quarterback's a big strong arm kid, and they got a bunch of D1 talent over there. So any of those top 4, I think, could win the state title in 5A.
Yeah, Coach Gaines talked about the schedule that they played, and they opened up. I mean, they played Gainesville, Georgia, where Josh Niblett is now, one of the better teams over there. They played Oxford. They had Auburn on the schedule. I asked him what he was. I didn't say, what are you smoking? But I pretty much implied that. I said, well, man, what are you doing up here? And he's like, well, we don't wake up out of the bed scared. And he said, we face – but the game got moved. It got canceled because of the hurricane that came through, and they weren't able to get back on track. They thought about replaying that game or trying to play that game this week, but they didn't work it out. So I'll be honest with you, it's probably best for Moody they didn't get that game in.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be pretty. So Moody's a good football team that's got a lot of great players, and in 5A, they're as good as anybody there at the top. And they're in the north. Here's the problem in the south. Catholic, Viger, Central Clay, and Williamson are all down there in the south, and all going to have to go through each other. I've got a potential Clay County route to the Super 7, and it's not pretty. I mean, I talked to Coach Horn about it. I mean, it's brutal. Let's be honest. They open up with Eufaula, which, again, Eufaula's a good football team. I mean, they're not as good as they have been in the past, and their record's a little deceiving. They struggle a little bit offensively, but they're good defensively. So not a gimme in the first round, but you would like to think Clay Central will take care of business. All right, second round would be Williamson, and Williamson's 9-1, and the only loss they've had is Viger, 19-2. They're coached by Antonio Coleman from former defensive end at Auburn. They're a good football team. You and I hadn't heard from Williamson in a while. Really, to be honest with you, I hadn't heard from him since Jamarcus Russell. But nevertheless, good football team, sitting right there as runner-up in their region to Viger. And then the third round, if Clay Central wins, they're probably going to have to play Montgomery Catholic. And that would be a road trip for them, more than likely, I think, the way the bracket sets up. And then if they were to get through Montgomery Catholic, probably Viger would be their fourth round matchup. And if they were to win that one, probably Moody in the state championship games. I mean, you're going to have to go through the top 5 teams in the state to get there. And I know that probably is cliche, and that's probably the case in most classifications, but rarely do you have to play all of them. Rarely, I mean, you're going to have to go through 1 or 2, but rarely would you have to play all of them like Clay Central's probably lining up to have to play. But they're probably saying the same thing about them. They're sitting there at number 2, and they're like, well, crap, I got to go. Williamson's like, we got to go on the road in round 2 to go play the number 2 team in 5A, and we're 9-1. It's just the way the playoffs work.
It is. And, look, you got to get used to it. Danny Horn has done it as well as anybody, and there's no part of me that thinks that what happened last year is going to happen this year.
Oh, no. That will not happen.
I don't think it will. It's probably good that it happened last year. They were a little ahead of schedule, but this is a very talented skill position team for Central Clay. So that's going to be a fun watch. Moving down into Class 4A, I'll run down the top 10 there and just get some thoughts from you.
This team you're about to say is I think they may be one of the best teams in the whole state.
They're one of the most talented teams. They played Saraland very close to start the season, and that's their one loss. And that's Jackson High School, number 4. In 4A, number 1 is Jackson. Pleasant Grove 2, West Morgan 3, Cherokee County 4, Brooks 5, Central Florence 6, Bibb County 7, St. Michael that we saw last night 8, Madison Academy 9, Good Hope 10. Thoughts in 4A, Brett?
Let me say something about a team outside of the top 10 first. Congratulations to Tallahassee. They're 12. Man, they didn't win but 1 game last year. And L.A. O'Neill has flipped that team back. Again, it's no coincidence. When you get a good coach, things turn around. But I just wanted to mention that because they're in our local area. I hate to say this. It's really just been about Jackson all year. And it's going to be about Jackson in the playoffs. Jackson has separated themselves from everybody. St. Michael's lone loss was to them, and it wasn't close. And I saw a very good St. Michael's team last night play a good UMS Wright team. It's not record-wise for UMS the best team they've had, but they're still UMS. I watched them play. They're fundamentally sound. They're good on defense. They may be a little bit deficient offensively this year in their, what they have in the bag as far as their options on offense, but still a well-coached, good football team. Jackson has kind of run away with this thing. They've been unanimous number 1 in ASWA for the last 6 or 7 weeks, getting all 18 first-place votes. So can somebody rise up and knock them off? I mean, maybe. I think it's going to be them helping somebody beat them. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think it's going to be them playing a little bad and then somebody having a good night. So I'm gonna flip past 4A. To me, that's all I've got on 4A because they're just that's how dominant they are. Class 3A, here's another dominant team. T.R. Miller, number 1, Thomasville 2, 5-3, Mars Hill 4, and Houston Academy 5. Rounding out the top 10, Piedmont, Winfield, Lauderdale County, and Glenwood. How about Glenwood coming over from AISA and doing what they've done, sitting there undefeated? I don't think any of us are surprised because of the area they are over in Phoenix City, but that's a big step for them. And to come over and win Region 4 the way they did, that's a big deal, and they're a good team, but it's all about T.R. Miller right now in 3A.
Yeah, I like T.R. Miller. I'd watch out for Fife. Fife, the couple of losses that you see there can be deceiving. Their running back was out, a little gimpy during those losses.
Lost to a good Pisgah team. Yep.
Yeah, they've got some very good players there. So in Pisgah, you'll see them as we get into 2A's a top 3 team overall there. So T.R. Miller, I think it's theirs to lose, but I'd watch out for Fife. And I do want to watch Glenwood though. I mean, Glenwood undefeated and playing the way that they are, and just the conversations I've had about the physicality on the lines of scrimmage and how big they
Right.
are
They're big. They're
physically.
big. Yep. They're big.
They could be scary there in Class 3A, but I do feel like they're a little bit ahead of schedule. I think every year following up, you're about to see Glenwood in the top 3. They're just in a area of the state that you can go get to Bows and Joes, and they've always won, and they're going to keep winning. And I think they'll pick up a couple of other kids from that area year in and year out that'll really help them maybe get over the hump. But I haven't watched them enough to know, but my eyes are open to them now the way that they're playing this year.
Yeah, I don't know what the bracket looks like in the north, but Mars Hill and Fife obviously will have to go through one another, and also Piedmont. Somebody will have to sort all that out up in the north side, and then T.R. Miller in the south is definitely the favorite. I would think by most everybody. All right, Class 2A, Highland Home finds themselves atop the 2A power rankings. Coosa Christian, they're out. They're not going to be able to compete. The HSA had a ruling yesterday. Well, I'm not going to get into all that, but this is what happened to them last year. They had to forfeit several games last year. Now they've been put on championship suspension, not able to participate. They can play football next year, but they're going to have to go before the board and appeal. So that's a conversation for another day. Pisgah comes in at 3. Again, that was one of Fife's losses. Reeltown is 4. We know all about Reeltown and Coach Johnson and what they do. And in Cottonwood, very, very good football team coming in at 5. And then Winston County, Tuscaloosa Academy, Goshen, Clark County, and Decatur Heritage there in the top 10. But Highland Home, again, the Fault brothers, I know Keldrick's at Auburn now, but the younger one right now is just wreaking havoc. They got good players, though, not just him. They've got other good players. And, Highland Home's been very close. They haven't been able to get past the Reeltown hump the last couple of years. Reeltown's had their number. Reeltown finished runner-up last year. They don't have to go through Fife this year. So Reeltown's got their eyes set on a blue map.
Well, this is a classification that I get a lot of information on the HSA from. I mean, it's some of these smaller schools send in their info better than some of the largers. Let's just be honest about it. So I'm sending out content around this class a lot. You look down here, Brett, there's 6 or 8 teams here that can win a state championship.
Right.
I don't think there's a big separation at the top all the way down to, say, Tuscaloosa Academy that comes in at number 7. That's a really good football team with a great quarterback that scores a lot of points. So that's going to be a very fun class. Hey, I want to say that about all of these classifications. I would maybe point to 4A with Jackson and say that they're head and shoulders better than everybody else. They'd have to fall flat on their face to not win. But
everybody else is close.
I think you can make an argument that 4 to 6 teams in the rest of the classifications can win a state championship. And that's fun when you go in thinking that.
Well, that's all we want. We want good playoffs. I mean, obviously we're biased in 6A while Benjamin Russell's still in it. But when they go out, hopefully they don't go out. But when they go out, we don't have a dog in the fight, especially as we prepare to call the Super 7. And we'll blink and it'll be here in a few weeks. But you're right. I mean, you really anybody in these top 7 to 10 have a legit shot, and that's what you want. I mean, you want it to be, a playoff where you don't know who's gonna. It's not just a clear path for one team. Like I said, Jackson probably in 4A, but with us saying that means they'll probably get upset in the first round. But anyway, let's flip over to 1A and Wadley. Man, they've been unanimous number 1 in 1A, and because they're 1A, they probably don't get enough talk from us or anybody else, but this could be another one. I mean, Elba's there. I mean, Elba comes in at number 4 in the power rankings, and we all know they got Alvin Henderson and that old story, but Wadley 1, Hackleburg 2, Spring Garden 3, Elba 4, Maplesville 5. It's good to see Maplesville back up there. They used to be a powerhouse in this state. Millry 6, Linden 7, Leroy 8, Barry Fayette. I'll be honest with you, never heard of them, never followed them. And Lynn comes in at number 10. That's a new one there. But Wadley, two-headed monster tailback, very good football team up front. And when you're as big and physical as they are in 1A football, makes it really tough on teams because of numbers, because of depth.
Yeah,
you may have a player that can compete over there, but overall putting together a complete team, and they can throw the football too, by the way. They don't have to just go with Wilkes back there at running back. And by the way, he plays middle linebacker too. But, you know, that kid right there alone is enough to handle for most 1A teams, maybe even some 2A teams. But it's going to take a valiant effort for somebody to knock them out.
Going to be a fun playoff run, Brett. Looking forward to all of these. Stay tuned in, AHSA Radio Network. Brett and I'll have the Benjamin Russell game playing Percy Julian. I'll send a little synopsis out here in the next hour or so on the matchups there and some of the storylines. We'll have the AHSA Radio Network scoreboard show tonight. First couple of weeks of the playoffs. We stick with that scoreboard show too. So stay tuned in for that.
All the way through the third round.
All the way through the third round. So stay tuned in. It's a fun part of the year. If you love high school sports like we do, it's one of the best times of the year here in the state.
Yep, that's going to wrap it up here, Rainey. I know you want a little plug there.
Well, you see my printing back here in the back going on. We're busy in Dable. I just want to make sure that all of you out there that are looking for customized apparel, promotional products, athletic uniforms, we can handle it here at Lee Apparel. And if you need any signage, whether it be for schools, businesses, organizations, Sign Source here. Right in Dable, got some good news coming on some a new location, maybe a couple of new locations here coming up in the short term. So stay tuned in for that. But Lee Marketing Group, Lee Apparel and Sign Source, let us know if you need anything. We'd love to get you a quote out.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody that we will go live on Saturday after the Vanderbilt game. So we'll be going live like we did this past Saturday after Auburn's win over Kentucky. We'll be going live right after the Vanderbilt game on Saturday. So looking forward to that. We'll be on the air Saturday morning. So we'll actually be going live too, but we'll be going live in another venue for our Saturday Sports Countdown show. But got a lot on tap. Got a football game tonight. Got Auburn Blitz at noon today. So hope everybody has a happy Friday.